Hi there, welcome to the Be Ready for the World conference. I'm Rebecca and I'm from Cambridge International and I'll be hosting your webinar today. I'm joined by some of my colleagues and we'll be taking you through our Cambridge primary and lower secondary programmes. This session is really aimed at teachers and school leaders who do not currently offer our primary and lower secondary programmes and would like to find out more. Before we start, just got a bit of housekeeping to go through with you. You may have noticed that your microphones are muted. They will stay on mute as we go through the session to avoid any background noise. We are all also hosting this webinar from our homes, so if there are any issues with our internet, please do bear with us. There will be a Q&A session at the end of this webinar, so do post any questions you'd like to ask in the Q&A box as we go through. You can also use the chat box for any general comments, but please don't post any questions in the chat as they may get lost. If you're having any technical difficulties with sound or video, please let us know in the chat and we'll do our best to resolve them. We recommend that you use headphones to listen to this session for the best sound quality. We are recording this webinar as well, and we'll send you a link to the playlist following the conference, so don't worry if you do miss anything. And if you're unable to see the Q&A and the chat icons, please hover over the mouse at the bottom or the top of your screen and they should appear. So it's the Q&A for questions and the chat for any comments or any technical difficulties, and we'll do our best to help with them. Okay, so on with the slides. So who are we? We are all parts of Cambridge. This is just to start off to show you how we all link together with the University of Cambridge and with Cambridge University Press. So this diagram illustrates how we all fit together and where we sit as part of the university. Together with Cambridge University Press, we share the biggest assessment research team in Europe and have an unrivaled depth of experience in national education systems, in international education and in English language learning. And that's just where Cambridge University Press sits alongside us, linking to the university as well. So working together with Cambridge University Press, our joint mission is to contribute to society by enabling teaching and learning at the highest levels of international excellence. We're at the forefront of education for 5 to 19-year-olds around the world. And we share your desire to make a transformative impact on learners worldwide and unlock their potential. We believe that education is most powerful when curriculum, assessment, teaching and learning align. And we talk more about this and this approach in the context of our primary and lower secondary programmes later on in the webinar. So Cambridge Primary, this starts learners on an exciting educational journey. It's typically for students aged 5 to 11. Our lower secondary programme is typically for students aged 11 to 14. My colleagues Fiona and Sarah will talk in more detail about the programme in a couple of minutes, but to give you a broad overview, our Cambridge Primary programme offers a broad and balanced education for your students with 10 subjects to choose from that provide an excellent foundation for the next stage of their education. You can shape the curriculum around how you would like your students to learn, and because Cambridge Primary is flexible, you can adapt it to suit your context and make the content suit your own context, your culture and your ethos. Our primary and lower secondary programmes are part of the Cambridge pathway, and each of the stages leads seamlessly on to the next, with each stage building on the learner's development from the previous one or from other educational systems. So I'm just going to talk now about our approach to primary and lower secondary education. There are 5 principles that underpin our primary and lower secondary programmes. My colleague Fiona is going to talk through them in more detail and about what they mean for teachers, parents and students. but to give you an overview, the 5 areas are listed on this slide. A broad curriculum for a balanced education, so with a choice of 10 subjects, a wide range of support and optional assessments. A global learner in a local context. We want to celebrate local culture whilst helping learners discuss and understand global issues. A robust foundation with excellent progression. So Cambridge Primary provides a strong foundation for students at the beginning of their schooling before progressing through the Cambridge pathway in an age-appropriate way. We need to make sure that even the younger students are learning the right things at the right time. An aligned programme based on the latest research. So we make sure that the programme from the curriculum to the teaching and learning and assessment is aligned and informed by the latest research. Aligning these 4 areas puts learners in the best possible position for the future and leads to a much richer learning experience. A flexible approach. Finally, a flexible approach. Cambridge Primary and Lower Secondary are flexible, so you can build the programme so that it adapts to your learners' needs and your local context, and it works within your local context too. An integrated programme. So as I mentioned earlier, we believe that education works best when curriculum, teaching, learning and assessment align. Our primary and lower secondary programme prepares students for the next stage by developing their knowledge, their understanding and their skills across the programme. Our view is that assessment should both prove and improve students' learning, giving them focus, pace and challenge. And we organise our assessments in a way that maximises time for teaching and learning. All Cambridge primary and lower secondary subjects include a set of learning objectives that provide a structure for teaching and learning and a reference against which you can check learners' attainment and skills. I'm now going to hand over to Fiona to talk in more detail about the programmes.
Thank you, Rebecca. Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Fiona Jackson and I'm Head of Primary and Lower Secondary here in Cambridge. As Rebecca said, primary and lower secondary is underpinned by 5 educational principles, and the first one is a broad and balanced curriculum. In 2016, we had 5 subjects in our programme: English, English as a second language, mathematics and science. And in 2018, we added a new subject called Global Perspectives. And then in 2019, we added 4 additional creative subjects: art and design, music, physical education and digital literacy. So we now have 10 subjects in total, and we did this to create a broad and balanced programme for our learners. The 4 subjects shown on this slide all have the benefits for broadening students' knowledge beyond the traditional subjects of English, mathematics and science. And research conducted by Cambridge and others shows that students who study or partake in art, music and physical education tend to gain better results in other subjects. For example, regular music practice, thinking artistically, and regular exercise that is associated with these subjects has an impact on cognitive skills, such as concentration and attention, and improves learners' executive functions, which impact on improved academic performance. The benefits of a broad and balanced curriculum for school leaders, for teachers and parents is shown on this slide. Our second education principle refers to global learners in a local context. One way in which we create a global learner is by ensuring our 5 Cambridge Learner attributes shown on the screen are aligned to each of our subjects and to our assessments. The 5 attributes are our way of recognising that students need to develop attributes and life skills throughout their education, as well as academic skills. And this is so that they are successful at school, in university and in employment, both in local and international contexts. Global Perspectives is one of our primary subjects and lower secondary subjects, which has obvious links to our second educational principle, the global and local, because in this subject, learners are given opportunities to investigate topics that help them to understand their personal and local context, as well as having a global awareness. We do this in Global Perspectives by developing we do this in Global Perspectives by developing 6 skills, and those skills are research, analysis, evaluation, reflection, collaboration, and communication, as these are transferable skills that assist learners in being successful in all aspects of their life, at school, at home, and in their community. The benefits of developing global learners in a local context for school leaders, teachers, parents, and students is shown on this slide. Our third education principle refers to a robust foundation with excellent progression. Our primary and lower secondary curriculum were developed together as a single curriculum from stages 1 to 9, which we then present in 2 documents: the primary curriculum framework, stages 1 to 6, which is about ages 5 to 11, and the lower secondary programme, stages 7 to 9, which is about ages 12 to 14. When we present the curriculum to you, teachers, we show forwards progression from primary to lower secondary, which is stages 1 to 9, shown by the yellow arrow on this slide. But when our team designs each subject, we use backwards progression, which is the blue arrows. And we do this by first looking at the IGCSE and O-level syllabuses and what students need to learn. And then we consider what needs to go in lower secondary stage 9, then stage 8, working backwards to primary through stage 6 to stage 1. So when you next read our curriculum, you'll know that we have been robust in our progression process so that you can focus on your teaching and your learners. At the bottom of the slide is a link to a blog I recently wrote on developing curriculum progression, which gives you more detail about the design process we follow, which is forwards, backwards, up, down, and across. Progression is an important element of our curriculum. It gives you the certainty that when you follow the Cambridge curriculum, we are providing you an age-appropriate, well-sequenced learning journey for your learners that will flow well into later learning, especially if your learners remain on the Cambridge pathway to IGCSE and O-levels. Again, this slide shows you the benefits of our progression model for school leaders, teachers, parents, and students. Our fourth education principle shows how the Cambridge primary and lower secondary programme is aligned to the latest research in education. At Cambridge Assessment, we are part of the University of Cambridge, providing us links to world-class research. Specifically, we have access to the Faculty of Education, our own assessment research and development team, and Cambridge Mathematics, who focus solely on providing research and teacher support for mathematics. So we've just seen how progression has been woven through every subject in the Cambridge primary and lower secondary programme. And to develop sound progression in our curriculum, it has to be underpinned by research. And this research drives everything we do in our program. The research feeds directly into our curriculum, into our pedagogy and our assessment, which guides the development and implementation of our Cambridge primary and lower secondary programme. There has been extensive research conducted between 1995 and 2017 by Schmidt and Proat, which shows that high-performing education systems align their curriculum, textbooks, pedagogy and assessment, and they call this alignment curriculum coherence. The diagram that you can see shows how the curriculum feeds into the pedagogy and assessment, how assessment feeds into the pedagogy and curriculum, and how pedagogy feeds into the curriculum and assessment. It is important to note that right at the centre of the diagram are learning objectives, which are the cohesive element which ties them all together. On this slide, you should be able to see the alignment between curriculum and coherence in practice, and how it is presented to teachers in a practical way so that it is easy for you to implement. On this diagram, you can see the same learning objective, which is 4NP.02, use knowledge of place value to multiply and divide whole numbers by 10. And this is included in our mathematics curriculum framework right at the top. Then on the left of the slide, we show you how the same learning objective directly aligns to activities in our schemes of work and in our textbooks. And then on the right-hand side of the slide, how the learning objectives directly align to assessment questions in our progression tests and checkpoint. Our last educational principle is our flexible approach. As I said earlier, Cambridge Primary offers and Lower Secondary offers a choice of up to 10 different subjects to support you in providing holistic primary and lower secondary education. All 10 subjects are included in our programme fee and none of them are compulsory. Our programme is completely flexible, allowing you to choose whether to teach one, some or all of our subjects. We also offer flexible assessment options, which I will now go through. Accurately measuring a student's potential and progress can transform learning and help you make informed decisions about individual students, their educational needs, and where to focus your teaching efforts. So we offer you 4 assessment options. The first is one that measures potential. The second assessment option provides feedback. The third monitors progress. And the fourth, we check achievement. So I'll go through each of those. The first one is measure potential. So Cambridge CHEMS computer-based assessments are for 5 to 11-year-olds, and they help you identify and diagnose learning needs and measure and benchmark learners' potential in numeracy, literacy, and attitudinal skills. The baseline and diagnostic assessments adapt to each level, a student's level, quickly and accurately, identifying their abilities in core academic skills. And the main benefit of our Chem test is that it supports you to understand learners' current learning and predict learners' future potential. Our second assessment option is classroom assessment. And we encourage you to assess our creative subjects, art and design, digital literacy, music and physical education in the classroom through discussions, observations and lesson outputs, as opposed to asking our learners to sit a test. And the main benefits of this formative assessment is that it is immediate. You can determine what skills you want your learners to develop so that they can reflect on and improve their performance. And we provide assessment guidance documents, which you can find on our support sites, which are included in your programme fee. Our third assessment option allows you to monitor students' progress. Cambridge progression tests help you to assess knowledge, skills and understanding. And you can use our progression tests to check learners' progress at any time of year, as many times as needed throughout stages 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9 of our programme for English, English as a second language, mathematics and science. And the main benefit of our progression tests is the different reports that are available to you. And again, the progression tests are included in your programme fee. Our fourth assessment option checks learners' achievement, and it is called Checkpoint. You can use Cambridge Primary and Lower Secondary Checkpoint to check individual achievements at the end of stages 6 for primary and at the end of stage 9 for lower secondary. And the main benefit of our Checkpoint test is that learners receive a statement of achievement, and the tests are marked by Cambridge and internationally benchmarked. So you can have extra confidence in the feedback you receive and share with your parents. This slide summarises our 4 assessment options so you can decide which is best for you. The assessment you choose depends on a number of factors: what subjects you want to assess, what stage you are assessing, the type of assessment you want, diagnostic, formative or summative, and whether you want it to be paper or computer-based assessment. I will leave you on this comment before I hand over to my colleague from one of our Cambridge school leaders in Botswana. And my colleague Sarah Nelson will show you the support that we offer as part of the programme fee.
Hello, my name is Sarah Nelson, and I'm going to show you our primary and lower secondary support sites and how flexible your options are. And this is because all of our materials are now in one place so that you can choose what it is you want to use. The first place you should go to find any information or documents related to the primary and lower secondary programme is the relevant support site. As you can see in the navigation bar on the left-hand side, we've now organised the majority of the content by subject. There is now an individual subject page available for each of our 10 subjects. But before we look at one of the subject pages in more detail, I'm just going to point you towards, at the very top, the About Cambridge page. In this case, the About Cambridge Primary page. This is the page that has information that is relevant across the whole programme. There is information in the Guide to Cambridge Primary tab that talks about the Cambridge approach that underpins the design of all our curricula. There are curriculum and classroom support tabs, and they explain the different documents that are provided for each subject and their purpose. There are tabs for Cambridge Primary Progression Tests and Cambridge Primary Checkpoint, and they give guidance and information about how those tests can be administered, marked and fed back to learners and any other relevant stakeholders. In this section of the support site, you will also find written guidance and a video explaining step by step how to get the most out of the Cambridge Progression Tests and the reporting tool. Some of you may also be planning to teach only our Cambridge programmes in your school. But if you're planning to teach Cambridge alongside other curricula, such as your national curriculum, then we give you support in doing so in the tab called Integrating Cambridge in Your Context. And this gives specific guidance on mapping the 2 curricula together and planning for an integration of the curricula in teaching and learning. Once you have information about the programme as a whole, then it's time to move to one of the subject pages. So we're going to look specifically at an English page. As you can see at the top of the page, there are 2 tabs. And when you open the English or English second language, science or mathematics pages, you'll automatically be on the page for the current version of the curriculum. And the tab on the right will take you to the new version of the curriculum, the one that we published in September 2020. If you're not sure whether you should be teaching the current or the new curriculum, we give specific guidance to help you make that choice in the document you can see at the bottom of the screen called "Which Curriculum Should I Be Teaching?" This is taken from that "Which Curriculum Should I Be Teaching" document. And it shows that we release new curricula for English, English as a second language, mathematics and science in September 2020. This was to give you time to prepare for first teaching, which can begin from this year, 2021, with new progression tests available in 2022 and new checkpoint available in 2023. On page 3 of that document, you'll find a flowchart that will help you to know the specific dates of when we recommend you introduce the new curricula to each stage in your school based on your own personal circumstances. So if, for example, you're teaching stages 1 or 2, you could start teaching the new curricula straight away in 2021. However, if you intend to use either of our assessments, such as progression tests or checkpoint with stages 3 to 9, this start date may be later because of when those assessments are available. So if we follow the flowchart, you can click on the series that your learners will take if you choose to take our checkpoint. So if we click on May, then this will take you to the relevant table of dates that breaks down when each stage should move to the new curricula. And the information about when to teach each version of the curriculum is available both on the current subject page and on the new subject page. Once you're confident of the version of the curriculum that you're using, that's when you can begin to focus on the content. And each subject page contains all of the documents that you'll need to plan, teach, and assess that subject. So first is the curriculum framework. This is the key document that contains all of the learning objectives that you will need to teach for the subject for all stages in that part of the Cambridge pathway. In addition, we've also introduced progression grids. These contain the same learning objectives as those in the curriculum framework. However, instead of being listed by stage, we've organised them by skill, and we demonstrate how each skill progresses across the stages. As you transition to the new curriculum, you'll find that some content has moved stages or new content has been introduced. And we've provided transition documents to support you in addressing any gaps in prior knowledge, repetition of prior knowledge, or unfamiliar content. There's both general guidance and stage-by-stage documents that highlight the specific changes for each stage between the current and new versions of the curriculum. As with the current curriculum, we provide a teacher guide and schemes of work for each stage, and these have all been updated to provide even more guidance and support for you. As I mentioned earlier, the new progression test will be available from January 2022, and the new checkpoint will be available from May 2023. To support your planning ahead of their release, we've created sample papers for each stage. Checkpoint will follow the same format as the progression tests, so you can use the stage 6 and stage 9 sample progression tests as sample checkpoint tests. Our new assessment transition documents will also highlight whether there are any differences between the current assessment model and the new one. In addition to the support we provide on our subject pages, we also have training. So on the training page, you can find our guide to Cambridge Primary or Lower Secondary and our guide to Global Perspectives. For registered schools, these are free resources and they're always available from this page. You can access them whenever you want, as many times as you want. And we recommend that you access these guides before starting planning and teaching. You'll also find information about the different training that we offer. We have introductory training for those of you who are new to Cambridge. We have extension training for those who've already attended our introductory training or have been teaching Cambridge programs for at least 2 years. And we have enrichment training, which is designed to help transform your approach to teaching and learning. So all our training is available face-to-face and online, and we have new online training courses beginning in May and June for those of you who are interested and want to sign up. However, our training is not the only time that you can hear directly from Cambridge. On our community page, we publish a blog about an aspect of our programme each month. And on that same page, you'll also find links to each of our subject forums. These forums are moderated by the subject specialists in our team in Cambridge, and we're here to answer any questions you have about the programme. And in addition, this is a space in which you can then communicate with other Cambridge teachers who are also teaching the programme. So thank you. I'll now open to any questions that you may have. So if you want to add any additional questions into the Q&A box.
Yeah, I think we've answered all the questions so far. Just somebody's asking me for the website address to our public website, so I'm just trying to find that, or if anybody else has that where the expression of interest form can be found, that would be great. If you could just post that in the answer box, I'll see if I can find it. But other than that, I think we have no open questions, but we'll just give people time just to think about any question or further questions they'd like to add.
There's a question that's just appeared in the chat that says, could you please explain a bit more about the assessment?
Can I ask, can you come back into the chat and ask, let us know which particular assessment? Is it about, we have 4 different assessment options. So the ones that are included in the programme fee are the progression tests. And the progression tests are the ones where once you, they're marked by teachers. We have sample progression tests on our support site for you to have a look at. And they allow you to report by the student, by the class, the group, so you can see what's happening across the whole group of students. You can look at the test papers by question and see the analysis of how they answered each of the questions. And you can also compare yourself to other Cambridge schools who've taken that test. So that's what's available in the progression test. As opposed to Checkpoint, which is we charge per entry per subject, and that is marked by Cambridge, where your students will get a certificate, a statement of achievement, so that they can see how well they did and share that with parents. Are there any more questions coming in?
Yeah, Fiona, there's another question. Is training available only for those who are associated with schools and through schools, or can it be undertaken individually?
Yeah, so I mean, there's 2 different types of training, well, sort of 3 different types of training. There's training with Cambridge International, and there's training available for Cambridge University Press. So it depends whether you want training on the curriculum, which was probably goes into more detail in our online and face-to-face training at Cambridge International. But if you want to know more about how to use the textbooks or the teaching and learning approaches that I use, then there's also the Cambridge University Press training, which you can undertake as well. So there's many options, and you'll find the training on the support sites and actually on our public websites as well.
Do you have to be a registered Cambridge International school to take advantage of our training? That's just a question from me. I think that's a few questions being asked around that same area.
I think you would gain more from the training if that was the case. There are, and that they gets priority for the people who are registered, but you can apply if you're not a registered Cambridge school to join our training. And again, as long as you're prepared to pay the fee, then yes, you're very welcome to join our training.
Thanks, Fiona. And there's another one here. How do people plan, organise and introduce new curriculum frameworks?
Gosh, that is a really complex question. We do a webinar for an hour and a half based on how we do that. So to answer that in this webinar would be quite difficult. So I'm hope that you can join us on future webinars where we go into more detail on that one. That's a very complex answer.
There's another question, just for clarification on training for implementing the curriculum as an educator.
Yeah, so I don't know if you want to answer that, Sarah, about all of our training is for educators. We have a document called Implementing the Curriculum with Cambridge that's on our public website that you can look at. But in our online and face-to-face training, we go through the curriculum, we go through the pedagogy, and we go through the assessment because it's very important to tie those together. We go through our schemes of work, our teacher guide, and also the Cambridge University Press training will go through the textbooks with you and how to use those. So yes, all of our training is for educators, for teachers, and there's also training available for curriculum coordinators and training available for school leaders.
Another question on training, will there be any training for Global Perspectives?
Sarah can definitely answer this one. Do you want to talk about all the different training available, what's included in the fee and what is additional?
Yeah, so on the support sites, what you'll find under the training tab and also on the Global Perspectives subject page is a link to the guide to Global Perspectives. This is a self-led training that will just that you can walk through yourself. That's available all the time on the support site at any time. You can go back to that as many times as you want. And as I say, that's included in your program fee. In addition, we also have introductory and extension training, which are paid for training courses that you can apply for. And if you look in the answered Q&A section, I've put the link up that will take to the professional development calendar so you can find out which courses are available and whether there are any near you as well or happening soon.
Thanks, Sarah. Just a question about the assessment. I want to learn more about assessment. Do we have a platform where the teacher can make their formative assessment?
Yeah, so in the Cambridge University Press textbooks, there's topic type tests that I would say are formative assessments. And we're always working together, the press and Cambridge International, looking at future formative assessments. So I don't think that we currently have anything that you can, like the platform implies that you're looking for something online. But what we do have is assessment guidance, which is a type of formative assessment, and that you'll find on the Cambridge support sites. But as I said, in the textbooks is also aspects of formative assessment. And on both any training that you attend for either Cambridge International or Cambridge University Press, we have sessions on formative assessment and how you might use that in your classrooms.
Thanks, Fiona.
There's another question just in the chat from a few minutes ago. It says, how flexible can the progression test be? Can we choose the questions to form our own test paper according to what we've taught?
I mean, you can do that. That's absolutely fine, and we would encourage you to do that and use any of the information that we have on there is totally up to you how you use it. But what I will say to you that if you do that, then it will be very difficult for you to use our, on there we have an analysis tool called the report dashboard, and the report dashboard is going to take questions in the order that they were put into the tests. And if you're going to compare them to future years or previous years or to other Cambridge schools, then you would need to follow the progression tests in the order that they are in the paper. However, in the classroom, if you want to just cut up the progression test just to do try different questions with your students, not as a sort of a formal test, but just using them, then absolutely use our resources in any way that helps you best with your learners.
Can I add a caveat to that one as well, just around the English and English as a second language progression tests, just to be aware that the questions are based around inserts for the reading section and for listening in English as a second language. So if you're taking them piecemeal, it means that you may then lose something by not focusing on a whole text at that time.
think, Sarah, are you just responding to the question in the Q&A box about having some links in?
Yes, I'm just trying to share the link to the training pages on our primary and
Great.
lower secondary sites.
Thank you. And then a question about global perspectives. Is it a must subject for secondary students 6 to 10?
Well, that's an interesting question, because all of our subjects, all of our 10 subjects are, as we've said, are flexible. So none of them are compulsory. So it's entirely up to you whether you decide to teach global perspectives or not. But what I would say is, I went on a CUP session this morning about 21st century skills that I really thoroughly enjoyed this morning. And on there, I made connections about 21st century skills and our global perspectives curriculum, because in there, there's skills, we have the 6 skills around communication, collaboration, and so on, which are 21st century skills. Critical thinking skills was another one that was an essential 21st century skill that are all covered in global perspectives. And the challenges are really interesting in there, because they really do look at global issues like poverty, famine, transport issues around all sorts of really interesting topics that I think our learners are ready to engage with more, especially during, you know, the COVID epidemic. I think it's really made people think more globally, but also what the beauty of global perspectives is it first in primary looks at the local context, which children are familiar with, and that gets more complicated as it goes through lower secondary to IGCSE and looks at more global topics. So yes.
And then just another question, Fiona, is GP only from, what if we teach GP only from lower secondary? Will that be effective?
It's like with any of our programs, it's totally up to you. Yes, it will be great. What I would say is if you can teach anything, any of our subjects from stage 1, then you could be providing a robust foundation for lower secondary. However, depending on your context, that you may only want to start at lower secondary, then again, that's great, because it's like aligning beautifully to the IGCSEs and O-levels. So if you can get your learners to think about global perspectives at primary, that's the best. If you can get them to think about global perspectives at lower secondary, then you're getting them to think about those tasks and project work and working in a team. So by the time they take the more formal tests at IGCSE and O-level, they've got the terminology covered, and they can just concentrate on the actual topic or the topic of concern. And I really like global perspectives because it sort of encourages people to take social action, encourages the children to think about how they might make a change in their local community and beyond. So I think it's a great subject to consider.
Thank you very much for joining us today, and we hope you enjoyed this session. Thanks for all your questions and your engagement with the session too. We will be uploading the recording of this webinar to the YouTube channel, and the team that you registered with will be in touch when that's available. But in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed the rest of your day, and thanks again for joining us.